Griselda Blanco, also known as the Godmother and the Black Widow, was born in Colombia on February 15, 1943. She is suspected of having committed over 200 murders while transporting cocaine from Colombia to the U.S. She was raised by an abusive mother and drifted into prostitution at a young age. Working as a prostitute, she became involved with the Medellin cartel. Working for them, she helped smuggle Colombian cocaine throughout the U.S., even designing special undergarments that could be used to transport large amounts through U.S. customs. Blanco arrived in New York in the mid-1970s, a successful drug smuggler running a huge narcotics operation, but U.S. law enforcement was on her tail, and after intercepting one of her shipments, she and more than 30 of her partners were indicted. Afraid she would be captured, Blanco returned to Colombia, but eventually she came back to the U.S. and this time settled in Miami. She continued working for the Medellin cartel, acquiring her reputation for murder until she was eventually caught and jailed for drug conspiracy. Upon her release, Blanco returned to Colombia, where she was gunned down by two hitmen on motorcycles at age 69. In her time she was making approximately $80 million a month, and during her peak she was worth $2 billion. That makes this dangerous lady gangster number 5 on our list. Carlos LEHDER. Born in Armenia, Colombia, on September 7, 1949, Carlos LEHDER became a founding member of the Medellin cartel, eventually taking control of an island in the Bahamas and using it to transport cocaine between Colombia and the U.S. He used connections he had made in prison to help him import cocaine and distribute across the United States. A self-proclaimed Nazi, LEHDER was eventually run off the island by Professor Richard Novak, a diving enthusiast, hell-bent on keeping his diving paradise pristine. Once off the island, LEHDER attempted to keep the law at bay with threats and payoffs, but eventually he was arrested, extradited to the U.S. and sentenced to 135 years in jail. After agreeing to testify against the Panamanian dictator, Manuel Noriega, LEHDER was put into the witness protection program and virtually disappeared. Supposedly he was given a reduced sentence of 55 years and is serving time under another name. At the time of his arrest, government officials seized LEHDER's bank accounts and took ownership of his possessions, bankrupting the gangster. During his prime through drug trafficking and racketeering, LEHDER amassed a fortune of over $2.7 billion, making him number 4 on our list. Joaquin Guzman LOREA. It is believed Joaquin Guzman LOREA was born on December 25, 1954, in Mexico, although his exact birth date is not known. He grew up the son of a cattle rancher. His family was very poor and he helped by selling fruit when possible to help earn a living. He also learned to grow his own poppies for opium and marijuana to increase the family's income. His nickname was earned by his short stance. LOREA at full height was only 5 feet 6 inches tall, earning him the moniker of El Chapo, which means shorty. After his father kicked him from his family home, he went to live with his grandparents and he became associated with the Sinaloa drug cartel, overseeing drug trafficking between Mexico and the U.S. The drugs were obtained from Colombia and delivered into Mexico, where LOREA ran logistics, ensuring their delivery from there into the U.S. and Europe by way of plane, boat, truck, train, or helicopter. When the heads of the cartel were eventually arrested, LOREA took control. He added the manufacturing of meth within Mexico as well. According to Forbes, LOREA's net worth is estimated to be approximately $5 billion. Although eventually a $5 million reward was offered for his capture, LOREA managed to evade the authorities and stay at the top of the FBI's most wanted list for more than 10 years. He was only recently captured and arrested on February 22, 2014 at a resort in Mazatlán, Mexico. AMADO Carrillo Fuentes. AMADO Carrillo Fuentes was born December of 1956 in Vallejo, Sinaloa, Mexico. He was known as the Lord of the Skies, earning his nickname utilizing private planes to carry cocaine around the world. He owned a fleet of 27 private jets, most were Boeing 727s. Flying into mostly municipal airports and airstrips around Mexico, he was able to successfully transport massive amounts of cocaine. Fuentes murdered his former boss, Rafael Aguilar Gallardo, leader of the Juarez drug cartel, and took over operations. Under his direction, the cartel flourished and Fuentes became one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world, shipping tons of cocaine directly to Manhattan monthly. Married with a family, Fuentes resided in a Middle Eastern-style home that resembled a fortress called the Palace of 1001 Nights. It was finally ordered to be torn down in 2006 by Governor Eduardo Boars. Fuentes lived a far from peaceful existence, spending the last 10 years of his life mostly on the run from the law. In 1997, as capture became imminent, Fuentes decided to change his appearance, and after admittance into a hospital in Mexico City, he died on July 3, 1997, while undergoing extensive plastic surgery. The operation lasted over 9 hours, and it's unclear as to whether Fuentes had a reaction to a medication or the respirator failed, but he died on the table. Strangely enough, 3 months afterward, the 2 doctors who had performed the surgery were found dead, buried in concrete tombs. There was evidence torture had taken place. The funeral of Fuentes was considered to be one of the most expensive in all Mexico's history, with thousands in attendance. This gangster, in his prime, was reported to have a net worth of over $25 billion, making him number 2 on our list. Number 1 on our list is Pablo Escobar, born December 1, 1949 in Antioquia, Colombia. He was a founding member of the Medellin cartel, one of the most powerful drug cartels in all of Colombian history. His ruthless ambition gained him control of over 80% of the cocaine that was smuggled into the U.S. Born into a poor family, Escobar started his criminal career early, stealing and selling tombstones. By the 1970s he began to be involved with cocaine. In partnership with 5 other illegal business owners he formed the Medellin cartel, purchasing large amounts of coca paste from Bolivia and Peru and importing it to the U.S. According to Fortune and Forbes magazines, he came in as number 7 on their list of the 10 richest people on Earth. He crafted his position and status carefully, sponsoring charity projects and soccer clubs and investing in the right contacts and influential friends. Unfortunately, his ambition brought an early death to many that threatened to get in his way, including at least 3 Colombian presidential candidates, thousands of law enforcement personnel, attorney generals, judges, and even journalists brave enough to report the truth. At one point it was said he offered to pay off Colombia's national debt, estimated at $10 billion. He attempted to lobby for a no-extradition clause and generous amnesty to drug lords if they agreed to give up drug trafficking. This makes sense, as by this point he had distanced himself from the trade, instead choosing to impose a so-called tax on those trafficking directly. His fortune was estimated to be over $30 billion, earning him the number 1 spot on our list. He attempted to hide himself in prison to escape assassins, but that only lasted a year. Then he was on the run again. He was finally shot to death by the Colombian police in 1993.